We had a threat of potentially ISIS coming in and trying to, take over the Prince's oil.
Hey everyone, Mike Witt and Mitch McGlamory here with our 34th episode of Complacency Kills. So today we're kind of just going to hop in. Here at the company we have quite a few military veterans, and some of which that are still actively serving. So really just want to kind of get some details and some stories about your military history, kind of what got you into it, and where you're at now. So to kind of kick it off. I guess you should probably share with everyone kind of what you do here at Kontek and your background here, and we'll kind of hop into the military stuff.
Yeah, so I'm the outside sales rep for surveillance and intrusion detection systems. I've worked in sales in the past, and I've got quite a bit of prior background in terms of camera, surveillance, reconnaissance, things of that nature. So I've done it real world, so using that application. So.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, and you're in the Guard now, correct?
Yeah, the North Carolina Army National Guard.
Okay.
Yep.
And what do you do there?
I'm a platoon sergeant of an engineer reconnaissance platoon.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Which is priorly known as a route clearance platoon, but we're going away from route clearance, getting away from counterinsurgency and going into near peer. So that was kind of Big Army's idea to get rid of route clearance and go to engineer reconnaissance.
Okay.
Yep.
So when did you go into the Army and why? And why the Army?
So I grew up, my grandfather was in the Marine Corps, so I always had an infatuation with joining the Marines. Growing up through the height of the GWAT, every time I turned the TV on from the ages of 10 to, pretty much 19, you'd see something about Iraq, Afghanistan, something like that. So it was something like, during that time, I was always kind of, interested in it.
Yeah.
Hearing my stories of my grandfather during World War II in the Marine Corps. So his last few years, he lived with us. He had pretty severe dementia, so we had to follow him and stuff. And with him having dementia, I got to hear quite a few stories, a lot more. So I could probably repeat a few. But he was kind of my inspiration in pretty much everything in my life. Like, he taught me how to play golf, and I was a competitive golfer through junior, high school, into college, and even professionally. So when I did that, when I turned pro, backtrack, I got a golf scholarship, played for 1 year, and then turned pro after that. So at that time I had a golf scholarship, so I was like, school's free.
Yeah.
I stopped playing professionally, wanted to go back to college, had to find a way to pay for school. So Googled North Carolina Army National Guard emailed my recruiter, Sergeant First Class Ricky Dixon, best recruiter in the world. And
shout out Ricky.
Yeah, he got me in 2013.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. So have you been on the surveillance reconnaissance engineering side the whole time, or did you hold previous MOSs, or what?
No, so I've been a 12 Bravo the whole time. I'm in a mechanized brigade, so primarily Bradleys.
Okay.
So I was pretty much a tanker for the first couple years I was there. Oh, yeah. I was a gunner, then a Bradley commander. Was a Bradley commander overseas. But I did that primarily for the first, I'd say, 6 years. And then I got into drones, started flying the Raven, using that as kind of like reconnaissance for, whatever's needed. BDAs, battle damage assessments, recon of landing zones, things of that nature, enemy position, surveillance, stuff like that. So that's when I really got into it.
So you went to boot camp in 2013?
Yeah, I went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood in summer of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so, enlighten me. When it comes to the National Guard, do they all go through just the standard boot camp?
Correct.
For the Army? It's
not
So a separate program?
So what it is, so the National Guard is a state organization, but it's under the umbrella of the United States Army. So the training, everything is no different than active duty Army.
Gotcha.
So it's the same 9-week basic training. I believe it's a 6-week AIT for combat engineers. We had a multitude of different 12 series. So we had Charlies, and we had a couple Novembers, I think, and then we had some divers in our AIT that would branch off during the day to do their training.
Gotcha.
While we were doing demo, we would do bridge building, things of that nature. So, and then a lot of infantry basic stuff, battle drills, things of that nature. Yep.
Okay, cool. So did you ever deploy during your time?
Yeah, so I went 2019. We got deployed to Kuwait, My platoon was the only one that actually had a mission at the time in our battalion. Unfortunately, due to some things that happened over in Syria where we were supposed to go, we got that nixed literally like a week before we hopped on the bird to go across the pond.
Yeah.
So it's like we did 6 months of training. We were going to go and see some pretty gnarly stuff or do some gnarly things, and it got nixed. So last minute we got put on base defense. So that's what we were doing. So that's where I started to get really into surveillance, things of that nature. We also used a couple intrusion detection systems there too. Mainly we were guarding oil refineries, things of that nature. We had a threat of potentially ISIS coming in and trying to take over the Princess Oil. So it was our job to protect it and the area it was around.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Right. So what's your favorite thing about your time in the Army? What do you like about it?
I think the one thing that I enjoy the most are the people.
Okay.
Like the guys that I've met throughout my time are some of my best friends. Like 4 of my buddies are in my wedding this year. Like guys that are, you can attest for being in the Marine Corps, like you build those bonds through we call it trauma bonding. So through those hard times, you stick it together, you laugh, you yell at each other, things of that nature. It's like those relationships, you'll never find it anywhere outside of the military.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you hate the most about it?
God, probably just
any of your commanders should turn it off now so you can speak.
Yeah, it is what it is. Like being a senior NCO, it's like all the admin work. It's just kind of like now it's going away from being a lethal force, going into making sure feelings aren't hurt, things of that nature. It's like we're professional athletes to an extent, so we should be treating what our job is as that. So I think going out and actually training to what is to potentially come should be the standard no matter what.
Have you seen a big change when it comes to the inclusivity, change in standards or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely change in standards. That's one thing that I really uphold into my platoon is the standard's the standard. I don't care if you're man or woman. I don't care if you can do your job. Then let's go. Let's hop on that horse and take off. But I have seen kind of a lax in certain areas, mainly let's say the PT. When the ACFT rolled out, it seemed like it was there to it's a great test of fitness or kind of a modality to kind of see if the soldiers fit for whatever role they're in. But I think the grading scale was kind of watered down to make sure people can stay in, because recruitment and retention was kind of hurting here the last couple of years, ever since COVID. So we're just kind of seeing that backlog of COVID. So now it's getting a little bit better, but my thing is the lowering of standard is the one thing that that's my least favorite.
Okay. Gotcha. So is your platoon a mix of male, female? Is it all male?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So females could come to the combat MOS side. I think it was before we deployed. So
2017, 2018.
I think 17. Yeah, we had some, and like I said, they all did great. It's not an issue with me, but the big thing is, like I said before, the standard's the standard. If you can't pull a 250-pound guy with kit on and full battle rattle, sorry, go find something else to do.
Yeah.
So if you can't charge a 50 cal. If you have a hard time pulling that back, you can't rack it right and rack that ghost round, rack that real round in. It's sorry, you're battle ineffective and you can't do your job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Mike, you were in the Marine Corps, right?
Yes. Yep.
When did you join?
I joined in 2006. I was in from 2006 to 2010. So I did my 4-year active duty stint. And
what was your MOS?
I was an 0352, so that's an anti-tank missileman in the infantry. So our primary function was operating either the TOW missile system or the Javelin.
Okay.
So got out of high school. For a multitude of reasons, I went into the military. The 2 primary ones being, I was always kind of interested in it. Similar to you, my grandfather, he was in the Army and was a big impact on my life too. So just having the general interest, and then also kind of screwing off during high school, and the fact that I think I graduated with a 175, which I don't even know if it's legal, but so for those 2 main reasons, I didn't have a good college path, didn't have good direction as it relates to that, so it seemed like a good fit. I was actually originally going to go into the Army I was working with a recruiter for several months until it came up that I had asthma in my medical history.
Yeah.
So they dropped me like a hot potato, but the Marine Corps picked me right up. So
come on, man.
yeah, like, come on, bub. Yeah, and so obviously in '06 it was kind of getting towards the the peak of the GWAT, particularly as it relates to Iraq, and the Marine Corps was transitioning over to Afghanistan just a couple of years later. So yeah, went to Parris Island in '06. Went to School of Infantry after that, and then I ended up being assigned to 2nd LAR, Light Reconnaissance Battalion, which is the closest thing is similar is to like the Stryker groups in the Army.
6x with a 30 millimeter.
Yeah. Little 25, but yeah.
Oh, the 25.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did that. Actually, my first deployment, we were actually supposed to go on a MEU, and so for those that don't know, it's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and so that's when a battalion of Marines reinforced. They join the Navy, go out on a vessel for 6 months, either in the Mediterranean, typically for like the 24th MEU where we were, or outside the Middle East. But we did our workup, and then I don't know, it was probably about 2.5 months before we were supposed to deploy on the MEU. They called an audible and were like, nope, we're deploying as a MEU, but you're not going on ship, you're just flying straight to Afghanistan. And this is when the Marine Corps kind of started their next big push back into Afghanistan in 2008. So did a deployment to Afghanistan in '08 down in the Garmsur region. So we were down in Garmsur in '08, and then redeployed with a different unit in end of 2009, beginning of 2010, so a 2010 deployment back up to the Marja area. So yeah, so did those 2 deployments, and then I was like, all right, I'm ready to go to school.
Yeah. How long were each of those deployments?
That's one good thing about the Marine Corps. They're about 7 months.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many guys that we would come across at FOBs or back at the air base or whatever that were in the Army, and we're doing 13, 14, 15-month deployments. I was like, dude.
And they would preach that, you can go home for 2 weeks, do R&R, and then come straight back. It's just like...
It's kind of crazy.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Just toys with your mind.
Yeah, and especially like for our deployments, like the op tempo that we had, and especially my first one, the lack of like traditional resources that you would see on a lot of deployments, like what they had in Iraq at that time. Just that portion of Afghanistan was so new to the U.S. southern Helmand province that we really didn't have the infrastructure. So like we went to a British Fob Dwyer, that at the time was maybe the size of a couple football fields. Mm-hmm. So that was our main fob, but we'd go out of the fob and be essentially living in the mud huts for a month to a month and a half at a time.
So you're pretty much on foot the whole time. You were in LAVs?
No, I mean we were in LAVs. Most of our stuff was foot, but what was good about the first deployment that was different from my second one is the first deployment we actually operated like you would typically think of like a mechanized infantry unit operating. Since we were just a platoon and we were reinforcing weapons company and the line companies of the infantry battalion, we were actually used as like small, like 1, 2, 3 vehicle assets that would go and run missions with them. And so the majority of the time we were dismounted and operating as you would think a traditional mechanized infantry unit would, actually making, utilizing your scouts and things of that nature. It's very different to my second deployment, where my second deployment was very much more focused on just straight vehicle operations. So I spent a lot more time in the vehicle on my second one.
Were you in the back? Were you actually part of the crew?
So my first one, I was in the back. I was a scout in my first deployment. So I didn't even do anything O352 anti-tank missileman related until my second deployment. So my first one, I was a infantry scout as part of our platoon. So I was a 52 doing a role of what an O311 would typically do. And then my second deployment though, I actually went back to doing my MOS, and so I was an anti-tank gunner on the LAV-AT on my second deployment.
Yeah, I think it's what a lot of people don't realize. Like whatever MOS you go into, that might not be what you do overseas.
Yeah, no,
there's
it
a
just
very good
depends on
chance, there's a MP unit doing infantry stuff or attached to infantry. It's just like you just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, no,
it's
just whatever the Marine Corps needs at the time.
Exactly. Yeah,
like all right,
you're gonna do this.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. So, But yeah, no, I learned a lot. It was definitely a great experience, but it was one of those things for me, like when my contract was coming up, I extended by a couple months to do my second deployment, but then after that, my philosophy always in the military was either you do your 4 years on active duty and get out, or you do it professionally as a career and you stay in the whole time. Because I have a lot of buddies that would do the 8 to 12 years, which is great. There's nothing wrong with it. But the issue that they come across is that now you're 24, 26, 30, getting out of the military, haven't done school, and now you're going back into the workforce space competing against 20-year-olds.
Yeah. You're starting back at square one.
And you still have to go to school
Yep.
for, obviously it's all career dependent, but yeah, you're pretty much at the same point in the civilian sector as you are as, you know, a college student graduating at 21, 22 years old.
Yeah, I mean, the service looks good on a resume, but the stuff that, you know, employees are really looking for is you haven't had that experience yet.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my take on it. And so yeah, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do the 4, got out, got the good old fashioned GI Bill and made use of it. And so
Yeah.
here I am today.
You get to do any cool schools while you're in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, a couple. Like part of our MU workup, we did an extensive amount of mount and CQB schools that we typically wouldn't do. We did a trap course where, you know, the tactical recovery of aircraft personnel, I can't remember the P, personnel. But yeah, essentially, you know, going in and finding downed aircraft, recovering pilots and stuff of that nature. Yeah, outside of that, I pretty much did all the basic Marine Corps schools. Nothing too sexy though. A bunch of our guys in our unit did a lot more fun courses. Like they would go to assault climber school and DM school and stuff like that. But dude, I was a saw gunner, so you know.
Yeah. It's kind of a small approach to do anything after that.
Yeah.
Did they try to bait you when you were, you know, getting out to like, hey, we'll send you to this school or anything if you stay in?
When I was talking to them, the career field that actually interested me more than infantry was we did a lot of work with counter intel and the HUMIT side.
Yeah.
So I was actually assessing, kind of looking at the course requirements and what was needed for counter intel. So they kind of baited me with that. I was talking to him for a few weeks, but ultimately I decided I was like, I'm out.
Pop smoke.
Thank you, Captain, but I'm out.
Yeah. Thanks, but no.
Yeah. So, but yeah, kind of the same note though. When it comes to the best things, is the friendships and that sort of thing. I mean, there's guys that have been friends with. Same thing that, you know, they were in my wedding 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Still keep in touch with them. But we can go also a whole year without talking to each other. Talk to them a year later and you just pick up right where you left off.
Like,
yeah.
And the stories start coming back. Yeah. We do the same thing. It's like with being in the Guards, like we see each other once a month, but it's like the next time we see each other, it's like
there's no time.
It's like we saw each other yesterday.
Yeah.
And we all have like group chats and stuff like that, so we always keep in touch and stuff. But it's just one of those bonds. It's like it's hard to beat.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, no, I think we got a good group of guys here, though. I do think, like at Kontek, just having the military background, especially for the industry we work in, I think it helps all of us gel well together. So, but yeah, if you're thinking about enlisting, go Space Force. Get a good job when you get out. But yeah, well, I appreciate your time, Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
appreciate
always
it.
Fun. But yeah, if you guys have anything else, just shoot us an email at info@kontekindustries.com. Any kind of comments, questions, and we'll be happy to answer them.